I'm definitely going to be over time. So, hi, I'm Noreen Lanigan. I'm a sports dietitian and lecturer at HU Galway, and I'm presenting some preliminary results from my research on the prevalence and predictors of iron deficiency in elite female Gaelic Games athletes. So, iron deficiency, if you don't know, is the most common nutritional deficiency worldwide in both developing and developed countries, affecting approximately 2 billion people. Why do you care? Because you care about athletes, and it negatively impacts sports performance. A recent systematic review from Mike Penguin highlighted that it can reduce endurance performance by 3 to 4%, VO2 max by up to 15%, isokinetic strength by up to 23%. So big, meaningful impacts. The good news is that we can fix it by repleting iron stores with supplementation. Those athletic decrements and athletic outputs are reduced. It's a feminist issue. Women are disproportionately affected by iron deficiency because of iron loss during menstruation. Athletes are also more at risk than the general population because of the increased demands of iron because of training and the negative impacts of training on this hormone hepcidin, which regulates iron absorption. And so when you think about inter-county camogie ladies footballers, they are athletes training at an elite level, but with the amateur status and supports and resources that go with that, so likely at risk. So the aims of this study were to assess the prevalence and potentially create a screening tool looking at predictors of iron deficiency in elite female inter-county players. So it's an ongoing cross-sectional observational study. I'm taking venous blood samples looking at ferritin, hemoglobin, and transferrin saturation, and asking a battery of questions. I've printed them out for you if you want to look at them in more detail yourself. So far I've recruited about 120, so maybe halfway there. And the main reason for exclusion would be athletes reporting illness or high CRP in their bloods, which is indicative of an immune response. Ferritin is an acute phase reactant, so that would result in falsely high ferritins and false sufficiency. They're pretty traditional, classic intercounty players. They are 25 plus or minus 4 years, training 7 plus or minus 2 hours per week, healthy BMIs, and we're testing in the league, so kind of every day. So do they have iron deficiency? Oh yeah, they do. So really 1 in 2 of those intercounty players are iron deficient. 27% iron deficient stage 1, 16% iron deficient stage 2, and 5% full-blown anemic. So we certainly have an issue, and this is a higher prevalence than in other elite female cohorts. As a practitioner, I don't just want my athletes to be not deficient, I would like them to be optimal. I think that's, acceptable. And if I was to use a higher threshold of 50 micrograms per litre for ferritin, which is the often cited reference for optimal iron levels, only 35% of those intercounty players would be at optimal iron levels. So we certainly have a problem. Now, what predicts iron deficiency? Well, with those rates I could flip a coin and I could tell because it's 1 in 2. But if I want to look at the predictors, which I did a binary logistical regression looking at deficient versus insufficient, and you can see their sweat rate, hunger and stomach grumbling, and period products come up. And using a log linear regression and like ferritin, similar, and BMIs included there. So what we really have then is that it's an input-output issue, not surprising, okay? So input being hunger is a risk factor, okay? The question, and the full question is in there, have you been bothered by hunger pains in the stomach during the past week? This hollow feeling in the stomach associated with the need to eat between meals? Nobody should be answering yes to that question in Ireland in 2026, but these players are. And for every increased severity point on the scale for either the stomach rumbling or hunger scale, there's a reduction in 8% of ferritin, which is really interesting. They need to eat more. Lower BMI, increased risk as well. Then output, period products. If you use 2 or more sanitary products, so that would be, let's say, a tampon and a sanitary towel at the same time, which is likely because of a heavy flow, you're more at risk of iron deficiency. And it didn't reach significance, probably because we're not at sample size yet, but moving towards that would be use of oral contraceptive. So if you use oral contraceptive, that would reduce your menstrual blood flow, and you're probably by the end of the study going to be less likely to be iron deficient. Now, one funny one I wasn't expecting. Hands up if you're a heavy sweater. Anyone? Yeah. You're less likely to be at risk of iron deficiency. This came across all 3 models, a binary, ordinal, and linear regression. that high sweat rates, the heaviest sweaters, were at lowest risk of iron deficiency. This was totally unanticipated. The reason I included these questions was because we do lose iron in our sweat, and I anticipated, well, if you're training 7 to 10 hours a week, you're a heavy sweater, you know, maybe you lose more iron, you're more at risk of iron deficiency. So honestly, I don't really know. It's potentially maybe a reverse causation, that those who are iron deficient are not able to produce as much work rate in a training session at a similar RPE, and therefore are not sweating as much. I'm not totally convinced by that, but that's what I've got at the moment. It may also be to do with low energy availability, affecting hormones, but again, unclear. So as a practitioner, what can you take away from this? Get your players' bloods checked, okay? So you can, if you're working with inter-county teams, engage with the Gaelic Players Association Player Health Check Programme. They check bloods for inter-county players every year for free. It's advertised through your GPA player rep. They don't actually test for iron, which is basically the only thing we can change. So if you want to get your iron tested, contact me, ACL Dietitian on Instagram, or my email, and in the pre-season, and this study will pay for the iron profiles. At a very fundamental, give them more food. So is there food after training? Are you sending them home with an extra portion for next day? Can we get more snacks pre-training? It's not just iron-rich foods, it's just food in general. And highlight the importance of iron for female athlete performance. There are reductions in strength, repeated strength and endurance. This is a quote from a player who we did repeat. I felt less lightheaded at training and had improved energy. It makes a meaningful difference. So the more, it's not just a nutrition and medical issue, it's for S&Cs, coaches and athletes as well. So finally, I'd like to thank my collaborators and funders, and if you have any questions,